This hour of the Costa Report is brought to you by Dole Food Company, the world's leading producer and distributor of fresh fruits and vegetables.
Welcome to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and thank you for joining me for another 2 hours of Straight Talk Radio. I want to welcome members of our military who are serving in remote outposts and listening over the internet today. I also want to take a moment to welcome new listeners tuning in on radio affiliates in New York, Florida, California, Texas, Missouri, Ohio, and across all 50 states, including the beautiful islands of Hawaii. Thank you for making us part of your news week. In just a moment, best-selling author and popular columnist for the Washington Post, Dana Milbank, will be joining us to break down some of the advantages, disadvantages, and the challenges the candidates face in the 2016 contest for the White House. It's been a busy week in the primaries, and it is becoming increasingly clear that two insurgent candidates, Trump and Sanders, have thrown a wrench in the works for the establishment of both political parties. In the next hour, we're going to talk about whether all this disruption is a good thing and why record numbers of voters have been showing up for the primaries. But before Mr. Milbank joins us, as is my custom each week, let me tell you a little about his background. Dana Timothy Milbank is a graduate of Yale University. He spent years covering the U.S. Congress for the Wall Street Journal and 2 years as the senior editor of the New Republic before joining the Washington Post in 2000. Milbank is known for his insightful coverage of the 2000 and 2004 presidential elections and for covering President Bush's first term in office, during which, the story goes, Karl Rove asked the Post not to assign Milbank to the White House. As anyone who regularly reads Milbank's columns and articles knows, Milbank calls it the way he sees it, and that doesn't have to suit everyone. I would be remiss if I did not add that Milbank is the author of 4 best-selling books, Smashmouth, Homo Politicus, Tears of a Clown, and O is for Obama. It's my pleasure to welcome to the Costa Report popular columnist for the Washington Post, Mr. Dana Milbank. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Milbank.
My pleasure to be with you.
After being taken by surprise by Trump and Sanders, both parties seem to be trying to figure out how to deal with the popularity of non-traditional candidates. So let's start with Trump's success. In a recent editorial, you claimed he was running a Captain Underpants campaign. For folks who may not have already read your piece, tell us why you call it Captain Underpants and why that's succeeding.
Well, what I did was, if you've noticed listening to Donald Trump, he tends to use simple words, simple phrases, just short declarative sentences. It doesn't say a whole lot, so I sort of put it to a test. There's something called the Flesch-Kincaid measure that you can tell what reading comprehension level somebody's speaking at. I did it during the last debate, but I've attached it to speeches as well. You've got somebody like Marco Rubio, Ben Carson when he was in the race at sort of a 10th, 11th grade level. You have people like Ted Cruz, John Kasich, still on sort of the middle school level, and then you've got Donald Trump down there in 3rd grade. And I think, so that's where Captain Underpants comes in, because that's sort of at the 3rd grade reading level. So I said that not entirely disparagingly, because I think that is why he's connecting with a lot of people, and he's bringing a lot of people in who have felt disaffected before. It's a bit of a stereotype to say he appeals to sort of the poor, white, less educated Americans in rural areas. Obviously, his support goes beyond that, but there is a very strong core of support there. And I think it's because he's speaking at a very basic level. He's not really giving complex answers to America's problems. He's not really giving any answer to America's problems. He's just sort of giving a few words that sounds tough and confident. And for a lot of people, they just want to be told that it's going to be all right, and he's telling them that.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you point out, he uses simple words, simple sentences, and simple concepts, which just about everybody can relate to, I think, that's past third grade.
Right. You say, let's, what's your answer to immigration? Let's build a wall. Sure, that sounds terrific. And, let's bomb the expletive out of ISIS. That sounds great. Of course, none of this necessarily works, but it gives people a sense that, he's got a plan.
Well, now let's look at the Democratic candidates. Sanders is also presenting simpler concepts and also using somewhat simpler words and sentences than Clinton. His answers during the primary debates certainly seem to leave a lot less up to interpretation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think both Clinton and Sanders have been operating at a somewhat higher level, both in terms of their, the comprehension level, but also in terms of sort of the highbrow nature of their campaign. Sanders has been, I wouldn't say they're simple proposals. I would say they may be simplistic in the sense that he would say, sure, why not spend $15 trillion on a new health care plan? Why not have this major tax increase? Why not have a free college education for all Americans? And why not expand Social Security? They all sound like great things. Like, who could object to that? Except that actually getting it done is somewhere beyond impossible. So that's he has some similarities to Trump in that they're both clearly unhappy with the status quo. The advantage that Trump has is a lot more Republicans are unhappy with the status quo than Democrats are unhappy, and I think that's why Trump has caught on to a greater extent than Sanders has.
So in your view, are we seeing a dumbing down of politics? And how dangerous is this when the nature of our problems at home and also abroad have, in fact, become much more complex and difficult to solve?
I don't want to say it's a dumbing down, because it's not as if there was ever some golden age when we were all operating at some Socratic level of discourse. Certainly, the coarseness of politics has deteriorated, I would say, over the last 30 years or so, and it seems to accelerate and reach all corners of not only Washington but the country now. So certainly Trump is giving simple ideas with very simple language, but obviously it's a very clever campaign. He reinvented himself entirely from what he had said and done before.
But none of our problems are simple. We don't have any simple problems, or they would have been solved.
This is true. The problem is when you get, so I think you could say John Kasich is out there, sort of saying, all right, let's be reasonable. Here's a this is a complex problem. Here's a complex solution. It doesn't seem to catch on. So people are looking for either easy answers or easy sounding answers, or they just want to be reassured in some way. So I'm not. It's a subtly different from dumbing down. I do think people want, certainly in campaigns, to hear easier answers, and nuance really can be quite deadly. And that's I think that a lot of that's been the beef with Hillary Clinton and was with Jeb Bush.
But we have all these wonderful educational tools like YouTube, for example. I've never understood why these presidential candidates don't make a plan to put out like 30-minute or 1-hour YouTube videos explaining what the problem is and all the nuances. I mean, maybe television and radio are not the right venue to address highly complex problems or to educate people, but certainly there's other venues you can use.
Yeah, and certainly that sounds like a good idea. Now, in fairness to these candidates, or most of them anyway, there are extensive policy positions out there if you go to their websites. It doesn't seem to break through in the media, and certainly in the cable news and the
well, sure, because we give everybody 1 minute.
Of course, if that, you're lucky to get 1 minute. So that may be our fault in the media as much as anything, or just the sort of the popular culture appetite rather than the candidates not having.
Well, there you go. We're cooperating with that sort of headline mentality. We have to stop and take a short break, but stay where you are. We'll be right back with more from Dana Milbank. You're listening to the Costa Report.
Do you love creating salads as much as you enjoy eating them? Hi, I'm Amy Tobin, cookbook author and culinary expert. Dole inspires fresh and wholesome dishes for any meal with their wide selection of salad blends and all-natural salad kits. From the mild and tender texture of sweet butter lettuce to the crunch of classic romaine sprinkled with colorful shredded carrots and red cabbage, Dole has over 30 salad blends to satisfy every palate. If you're looking for the ultimate in convenience, try Dole's unique salad kit combinations that include farm-fresh lettuces and vegetables, mouth-watering all-natural toppings, and specially made dressings. It's all you need to make a distinctively delicious salad. The possibilities are endless. Visit www.dolesalads.com for recipes and other ideas to feed your culinary imagination.
Caraccioli Cellars recently celebrated the 5-year anniversary of their tasting room. During the celebration, we spoke to Gary Caraccioli, owner of Caraccioli Cellars.
Great winery, great vineyard. We got it all. They're so good because we got a great staff. Michelle, my son Scott, all our gals. We're in a great location, and we're here in Carmel, a beautiful spot. I'm really basically a produce farmer, and I grow lettuce for a living. And then I've seen all the other guys getting into making bottles of wine that didn't really know what they were doing in my area, so I decided that I'm going to do something different and make some sparkling wine. I got lucky, and I got Michelle. He's the man. You bet. And the Pinot and the Chardonnay are great, and that's what we use. All we needed was a good guy to put it all together. I like to make people happy, smile, show their dimples. Can't make people laugh. Life's boring.
Visit the Caraccioli Tasting Room on Dolores Street in Carmel by the Sea, or find us online at caraccioliCellars.com, or reach us by phone at 831-622-7722.
On November 2nd, 2015, President Obama signed into law a controversial budget bill that will make two popular Social Security claiming strategies for couples obsolete. Are you between the ages of 60 and 67? Whether you are a baby boomer, married, divorced, or single, these changes to Social Security benefits may affect your retirement plan. Please join us for an informational meeting on the recent changes to Social Security benefits and how they may affect you on Saturday, March the 12th at 10 o'clock a.m. at the Best Western Seacliff Inn in Aptos. Call Croxall Capital Planning at 831-661-4006 or email us through our website at croxallcapital.com to reserve your spot. Seating is limited, so RSVP today. That's Croxall, CROXALL, capital.com, or call us at 831-661-4006 to reserve your seat.
Security and advisory services offered through National Planning Corporation, NPC. Member FINRA and SIPC, a registered investment advisor. Consulting and investment management offered through Croxall Capital Planning, CCP. NPC, CCP, and Prudential are separate and unrelated companies. Matthew Homa is not a representative of NPC.
So you finally decided to start taking a vitamin supplement. Those chewables and tablets are fine if you don't mind paying for something that is only absorbed about 4 to 6%. However, a liquid supplement can have a 90% absorption rate if you choose the right one. Youngevity offers a wide variety of liquid supplements with a 90% absorption rate or more. Beyond Tangy Tangerine may be the best one ever invented. It starts as a liquid, then is freeze-dried like those instant coffees into a crystal. Then all you have to do is add a couple of scoops to water. No refrigeration, no fuss, no mess. Not only do you get a complete multiple vitamin, Beyond Tangy Tangerine also has minerals, and it tastes fantastic. You'll want to drink it all day long. So the next time you reach for a vitamin supplement, reach for Beyond Tangy Tangerine from Youngevity. For more information or to order, call Andy or Phyllis Anderson at 888-245-0300. That's 888-245-0300.
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and my guest today is author and popular Washington Post columnist Dana Milbank. And before the break, we were talking about the fact that simple language and simple, easy solutions seem to be what voters are attracted to this election. And candidates that have opted for more elaborate explanations have not done as well. So now let's try to break down the advantages and disadvantages the current lineup of candidates have, starting with Hillary Clinton. In a recent article, you make the point that there's a double standard at play when it comes to how she presents herself and just how tricky it is for a woman to show strength and leadership and at the same time be likable. Can you speak to that for a moment?
Yes, well, I probably can't as well as women could, but I talk to people in this field and try to understand the perspective on what this is about. And what brought this up was the Bernie bros. The notion that there was sexism at play in the Clinton-Sanders race. I don't think sort of the overt sexism is that huge a factor in that race. But what is a factor is the much subtler version of that. So, and people often don't think about it. It's not even conscious on many levels. But, for example, when, Bernie Sanders shouts or Donald Trump or anybody else shouts, you sense that they're being passionate. But when Hillary Clinton shouts, it sounds like she's screaming at you, that she's yelling at you. People feel like they're being lectured by their mother, that sort of thing. And there are other subtle ways in which this comes up in the campaign. There's a trade-off for Hillary Clinton in terms of showing warmth and showing strength. The trade-off doesn't necessarily exist because the strength is more assumed for a male candidate. And the tougher she presents herself as a leader, the less likable she becomes. So it's the ways in which a lot of us don't actually ever think about it gives her some disadvantage. Of course, running as to be the first woman who's president of the United States also has a history-making capacity that works to her advantage.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's very, very tough to show strength and leadership and also to be likable. I always admired Ann Richards in that you knew she was a very tough woman, but she seemed to use humor better than Clinton. She had a wicked sense of wit and humor, and she got away with a lot.
Yep. It's interesting, and you think of, Margaret Thatcher, another paradigm there. Very rarely raised her voice, but had a razor-sharp wit. Clinton can be funny, but is certainly not known for her sense of humor. So that that's maybe less a gender issue than just a personality issue in her case. But she does seem to have beaten back the Sanders challenge for the most part. So I wouldn't say she solved this conundrum, but I think they're very aware of it, and they're looking for ways for her to show passion without shouting, looking for ways for her to show strength without sacrificing a sense of warmth.
Mm-hmm. Likability, yeah. Now, another issue which commentators are looking at is how much she has recently aligned herself with President Obama and whether that's a good idea or not come the national election. What do you say?
Well, it was certainly a good idea in the primaries because President Obama has a support of something north of 85% of Democrats, and that's the audience that Sanders and Clinton were trying to appeal to. So that was very smart politics in the primary. Now, in the general election, that becomes a different story because she does not want to be seen as sort of the candidate of the status quo, because Americans, by and large, are disenchanted and think the country is on the wrong path. Democrats less so, but the country as a whole, and those independent voters that she's going to need to win over do not feel that things are headed in the right direction. So it's going to be a more delicate balancing act for her as she goes into a general election.
On the other hand, you've pointed out that in 2008, the losses to the Democratic Party were staggering. 69 seats in the House, 13 Senate seats, 910 state legislature seats, 11 governorships. In this respect, this looks to be a party that's in trouble. You would wonder why you would associate with Obama and what advantages you would think would come from that.
Right. Well, there are two ways of looking at it, and all those losses you say are since 2008, and that's following 2006, 2008 were good years for the Democrats. So that was, with the 2008 election was sort of a high watermark, and there's been pretty serious deterioration since then. Now, some of that is a backlash that you would expect against the president, Obamacare, but I think there's another thing that's going on is the Democrats really didn't the party as a whole really didn't put much effort into its local and state structures and keeping the party healthy at the basic level. Obama basically set up his own operation and was not helping with party building at all, and things really fell apart. Clinton is seeking to rebuild that now, and they'd better do that, because if they don't reach some sense of equilibrium in the state legislatures and the governorships, then when the next round of redistricting comes up after 2020, it's very likely Republicans will be able to cement their hold on the House of Representatives for another decade. So they're really very high stakes here. Now, the good news for the Democratic Party is they seem, demographically, and when you look at the whole electorate, to be in a much better place in terms of where the population is growing, and in terms of minorities, young people. So it certainly the Democratic Party enjoys a much better future if they're able to manage it at the local level better than they have been.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about these things like releasing the transcripts of Goldman Sachs and other speeches that she was paid for, and the possibility of legal action regarding the emails and the investigation into the Clinton Foundation? How many of these issues that seem to be looming in the background do you think are going to play any kind of a role, or is that just saber rattling on the part of the GOP?
Well, I mean, we don't know, obviously. You mentioned a couple of things there. I think when you're talking about, the Goldman Sachs speeches and speech money from Wall Street, that's not going to be a very enduring issue. Certainly, if the opposition is Donald Trump, it's sort of going to go away. The email issue is an entirely different story, because nobody, except perhaps for Comey at the FBI and some of his investigators, know what's going to happen there, and it is entirely possible that they will make recommendation to the Justice Department sometime before this election to have a further investigation of Clinton and or others involved in the email server. So there's no telling how that could alter the course of the election. It could certainly fire up the opposition. It could also fire up Clinton supporters who would say, the timing is unfair.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're certainly right about one thing. Everyone is guessing in terms of what will happen and whether the FBI will file an action or not. I guess we just have to wait and see. We have to take another short break. When we return, we'll find out what other challenges the candidates face. You're listening to the Costa Report.
If you're wondering what to do with all that data you're creating, do I have an offer for you? Tableau is drag-and-drop software that people of any skill level can use to analyze and turn data into something actionable. That's right, I said actionable. And isn't that what all that data is for? With Tableau, you can connect to any data in virtually any format and visualize it on the fly. Databases, spreadsheets, even big data sources are instantly combined into usable charts, graphs, reports, and dashboards. People can analyze data and drag and drop at 10 times the speed of a traditional business intelligence system. But the most impressive thing about Tableau is that anyone can use it. And just to prove the point, you can get a free 14-day trial from Tableau just by mentioning you heard this ad. But do it now, because this offer won't last. For your free 14-day trial, visit Tableau at tableau.com/Costa. That's tableau.com/Costa. Tableau software. What's your data trying to tell you?
This is Sylvia Panetta inviting you to join us for the Leon Panetta 2016 Lecture Series. This year, Secretary Panetta will discuss an America in Renaissance or decline, the challenges facing a new president. On Monday, March 14th, we'll focus on war, terrorism, and other global threats with National Security expert Mike Rogers, Ambassador Wendy Sherman, and former Army Chief of Staff General Ray Odierno. What makes a strong commander-in-chief? Call 831-582-4200 for tickets.
Well, I finally did it. I opened a 401k.
What? Why? Just wait for the inheritance. We've definitely got a rich uncle somewhere. We're one call away from the winner's circle at the Derby, dinners with multiple forks, a vacation home in the country, using summer as a verb.
You don't actually think that, do you?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
It must be, it has to be, with that big sound it's gotta be KSCO.
Okay, it's high time we made the official announcement. KSCO, your favorite radio station, has now entered the TV business. And what a TV station we've picked up. It's KYMB, and you can receive its signal free over the air on channel 27.1 on your digital television. We are also available on channel 19 on any Comcast cable system in the Monterey Bay area. KYMB is Me TV for the Monterey Bay, and you may already be familiar with this immensely successful TV network that features almost every great classic TV show from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. You know, shows like Bonanza, Perry Mason, Mary Tyler Moore, The Rifleman, Happy Days, and many, many, many more. So, KYMB, Me TV Monterey Bay, is now powered by KSCO, and we have 120 commercial minutes to fill each day on this wonderful channel that has a huge audience. See, don't just hear our unique KSCO content. Pharmacist Ben Health Nuggets, KSCO show promos, K's classic commentaries, spots for longevity health products and business opportunities, and maybe even commercials for existing KSCO advertisers. Hang on to your seats. KSCO is headed for the stratosphere. Tune in and join us. Free on air at channel 27.1 and Comcast channel 19.
Has anybody told you about Coast to Coast AM tonight?
We've had the Industrial Revolution, then the Digital Revolution, so what's next? I'm George Norrie. Join me with the trends expert Gerald Celente as we talk about the next big thing, followed by those special midweek open lines on Coast to Coast AM.
It's the best in overnight talk radio. Coast to Coast AM.
Listen to Coast tonight, beginning at 10 p.m. on KSCO.
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and if you're just joining us, my guest today is Dana Milbank. And before the break, we were talking about some of the challenges candidate Clinton faces, which includes the difficulty of showing strength and likability as a woman, as well as some of the issues like the email controversy, which are looming in the background. On the other hand, you have pointed out that Clinton has raised substantially more money than Sanders. Is that right?
Well, she has, particularly when you consider the super PACs, which Sanders doesn't particularly compete in that area.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think you used some number like 26,000 to 1. Is that right, or that's what I remembered?
Well, this is where we're talking specifically about what she has raised for the party. So
yes.
Both candidates,
for the Democratic Party.
Right. Both candidates signed up to have joint fundraising agreements with the Democratic National Committee and the state parties. Yes, Clinton raised about $26 million as of maybe a month ago. And at first glance, you would say Bernie Sanders raised $1,000. Although if you actually check that out, that $1,000 was something the DNC actually put into the account to open it up. So he raised zero for the Democratic Party, and this, I think, is why a lot of the the much maligned Democratic establishment and the Democratic elites are concerned that he would not care about rebuilding the party the way Clinton clearly does.
Well, sure. I think what you said was she has raised $26 million for the Democratic Party and Bernie Sanders zero. He has no interest in raising money for the Democratic Party.
No, and in fairness, he has done raised money for Senate Democrats and at various points during his career. But it does seem to be the same sort of thing that happened under Obama. He was very successful, but was not very good for the party, and I think allowed the party infrastructure to crumble, and they're now suffering as a result of that. So I think a lot of the sort of Democratic infrastructure here in Washington was saying that we can't, have another standard bearer who lets things continue to deteriorate.
Mm-hmm. Now, we talked about some of the reasons for Trump's appeal, and since he's the front runner, let's talk about the disadvantages that he might face securing the Republican nomination. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, he's obviously in a prohibitively strong position right now in terms of his march toward the nomination. It's certainly discouraging to somebody like me who thought that, given the various bigoted and racist things he had said and done, that he was not going to get that kind of a broad appeal among Republican voters.
How wrong you were.
Yeah, no,
I think you know what? It's the first time I can say that to you. I read all your columns, and I'm thinking to myself, how could you be so wrong?
Well, I do. I mean, I get things wrong all the time, but what wasn't really occurring to me there was that he could win the nomination without getting a majority of Republican voters, and that's still what's happening here.
Yeah.
Most of them don't want Trump. The problem is they've never settled on an alternative. You never had enough people drop out of the race so that they were given a clear alternative, candidate X or Trump. And I'm confident if they were given that opportunity, candidate X or Trump, they would not choose Trump. Now you see some of this too little, too late effort going on now with Mitt Romney taking off after Trump. You have sort of the national security Republican experts coming out and saying what a disaster.
Though to your point, Romney did not endorse a candidate.
Right. Well, Romney's hoping that he'll be the candidate, that Trump won't have enough delegates when they get to convention. They'll be looking for some white knight to step in, and he'll be happy to do that. Well, sure he would be, but...
you think it's going to be a brokered convention and Romney will step in as the hero?
I don't think that. I mean, people, you never know.
You could be right. You could be right about that because he deliberately did not... Well, he didn't endorse a candidate, and that certainly left a big door open.
Right. No, that clearly he's trying to preserve his options right now, so that he's willing to step in that case. Trump may get the number of delegates he needs, and in which case the issue is moot. And the other thing is, if he doesn't get all of the delegates, he's still going to be in a better position than anybody else. And Republicans are in a no-win situation here. If they go with Trump, they're going to alienate all kinds of moderates as well as some conservatives who think he is a fraud. And if they somehow manage to boot Trump out, well, they're going to have a huge swath of disenchanted people, Trump supporters, who are probably not going to go with whoever the Republican nominee is. So they're looking at a divided party either way.
Well, I call those Trump supporters that'll be disenfranchised independents. I think
that may well be right.
Well, they'll say the parties are wired, and they'll quit and they'll become independents, and that's what I think. I think the independent party will only grow stronger as a result of this election if the establishment of both parties don't handle it correctly. Let's talk about Cruz and Rubio. As much as they've been accusing Cruz's dirty tricks, pulling dirty tricks on Carson and Trump and Rubio, about the only criticism you hear about Rubio is that he sweats too much on stage. That seems so minor. I don't hear any substantial criticisms of him.
He's certainly, I think, much less polarizing than Trump or Cruz. I have no doubt that he'd be a far better general election candidate and would cause a whole lot of trouble for Hillary Clinton. But it does not appear that Republicans are going to give him that chance. They were ready to give him that chance, and you remember in the debate in New Hampshire, he had that awful moment and Christie put him on the spot, and he just kept repeating the same talking point, basically nonsensical talking point over and over again. And I don't think he ever entirely recovered from that. That was sort of his moment in the spotlight after he did fairly well in Iowa, and people were giving him a fresh look and said, well, maybe this guy's not entirely ready for prime time. Maybe he's too young. Did okay in South Carolina, but it does not appear that he caught fire again. And you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So when they're talking about him sweating or gulping water, that's all about him being too
not ready for prime time.
Exactly. So that's shorthand for saying
he's
just not ready.
Yeah. How about Governor Kasich?
Well, he'd be a terrific nominee. He'd probably be a terrific president. He's sort of got the John Huntsman problem from last time around, that, he is probably the favorite of the elites and the media and the intelligentsia, but that's not who elects the president, and it's not done in a smoke-filled room. But, yes, it would be very logical for Republicans to select the governor of Ohio, that crucial state, who's got this terrific long-time record in Washington and in his state, and is deeply conservative, but also reasonable on things such as the Medicaid expansion. But that's just not how the Republican primary politics is working these days. And he tried to basically run to the left of the others, and there's just no room for that in the Republican primary.
It's interesting. This week I happen to be in Ohio. I'm broadcasting out of Ohio and connecting with the station in California. And then from here we go up to satellite to all the affiliates across the country. And it was very interesting because I had a chance to ask people in Ohio, and they don't think Kasich will carry Ohio. The people who live in Ohio don't think that they're going to carry him. And when I asked why, they said because the fracking brought in a lot of wealth into the country. And what happened was a lot of people who had never experienced wealth before, who had farms and so on and so forth, thought that they became wealthy, but then they got slammed with taxes, new taxes. And that just really put Kasich in a bad light around here.
That could be. I mean,
it's interesting.
That's one theory. I think the bigger theory is that Kasich's just taking a beating so much elsewhere in the country that they no longer seem as viable even at home.
Yeah. Well, they think Trump's going to take Ohio, so we will see. We have to take our final intermission. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors. You're listening to the Costa Report.
Big data is being generated by everything around us all the time. Every digital process and social media exchange produce it. Systems, sensors, and mobile devices transmit it. Big data is arriving from multiple sources with ever-increasing velocity, volume, and variety. It's becoming the world's newest resource for competitive advantage, allowing decision-making to move from the elite few to the empowered many. The escalating demand for insights requires a fundamentally new approach to architecture, tools, and practices. To extract meaningful value from big data, you need optimal processing power, analytics capabilities, and skills. Find out how IBM Big Data and Analytics can transform your business. Visit www.ibm.com/bigdata today. That's www.ibm.com/bigdata.
Caraccioli Cellars recently celebrated their 5th anniversary of their tasting room. This is what Enophiles had to say.
My name is Samantha Cooper. The wines are so beautifully crafted, and you take so much time and effort that goes into making it. 4 years to make one bottle of wine, and they're just beautifully crafted, and they come out so amazing. My favorite would have to be the Brut Rosé. It's very near and dear to my heart. It was my wedding wine, actually. They loved it.
Edmund Benich. I love the cuvee. I love the sparkle. It tickles my nose.
Sarah Hines. I've been drinking Caraccioli for 5 years, and I love it. I'm across the board on this. I've been drinking their sparkling wine for some time, and I love them all. I entertain a lot. I enjoy entertaining using the Caraccioli wines.
Visit the Caraccioli Tasting Room on Dolores Street in Carmel by the Sea, or find us online at caraccioliCellars.com, or reach us by phone at 831-622-7722.
KSCO is a proud sponsor of Fire in the Heart, Cabrillo Theater Arts Evening of World Theater, March 5th at 7:30 p.m. at the Crocker Theater. Award-winning national and local artists explore how the arts become a catalyst for resilience in times of trouble, using gospel, hip-hop, classical music, spoken word, film, and dance. Tickets at www.cabrillovapa.com. That's www.cabrillovapa.com, or call 479-6154.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. I improved my credit score.
You're kidding, right?
No.
How are we supposed to be the bad boys of electro-synth pop if you're out there being responsible? The band is about to be discovered. This is our year.
Yeah, you've been saying that for a while now.
You think anyone in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was worried about their credit score?
I never really thought that.
Of course they weren't. Rock stars aren't supposed to think about that kind of stuff. We're supposed to think about how many guitars we've smashed, write aggressively sensitive power ballads, start questionable fashion trends, tragically break up and blame creative differences.
All right. I thought maybe it was time to take control of my finances, Start using a budget. Get out of debt. Set some goals.
A budget? Debt? Set some goals? Listen, I knew that we'd have our creative differences, but I was hoping they'd involve a little more scandal.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Michael Olson's second law of the food chain. The farther we go from the source of our food, the less control we have over what's in our food. Now that so much of our food comes from thousands of miles away, we should all get together Saturday at 9 a.m. as the Food Chain Radio Show tracks down who is putting what in our food. If you have a comment about the second law of the food chain, tell me. Michael Olson, all about it at metrofarm.com. Now, see you all on KSCO Saturday 9 a.m. for some What's Eating What Radio on the food chain.
What day was that?
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and my guest today is Dana Milbank of the Washington Post. One of the latest controversies is over the Supreme Court seat left open by the passing of Justice Scalia. And recently you made the point that this may be a dangerous trap for the Republican Party because the issues that 75% of Americans cite as their top priority, terrorism and the economy, are also issues that Americans feel the GOP does a better job at. So to the extent they get distracted, it may cost them. Is that right?
If you look at economic anxiety, which is a very important issue in the country, you would think the election would be fought on those terms, economic anxiety and anxiety about national security. And, polls indicate that Republicans do better on both of those. But now you have the Senate Republicans basically saying that they want to make November election a referendum and decide by the election who gets that ninth seat on the Supreme Court. Well, that makes it a sort of a culture war election. It's going to be about gay marriage and abortion and guns. And if you just sort of look at the social issues overall, the Democrats are the ones who seem to have the advantage there. So, there's a lot of talk now about how the Senate Republicans' stance on this has put their Senate majority in peril. It's not so much the idea that they wouldn't approve one of President Obama's nominees. One could easily see them voting that down in an election year, but that they're saying they're not even going to meet with the nominee, not even have hearings. I think that's made it fairly easy for the Democrats to make obstruction and the dysfunction of government in Washington a Republican problem in the November election.
I couldn't agree with you more. I have to tell you that even if that was the plan, why announce it? Just keep your big fat mouth shut.
They were under some pressure from conservatives in the base to do that, but they could have said, we'll see who he sends up, and then they could have done the slow walk and eventually voted that person down and said, here, we have X, Y, and Z reasons for doing it. And sure enough, then you're at the election and you're done. But they wanted to make their stand here, and that delights some conservatives, and that will fire up some of their supporters. But, it's always a bit of a chess match in terms of whether you fire up your guys or the other guys more.
Right. Well, the man that you claim is launching the Captain Underpants campaign, he kind of seemed to hit the nail on the head when he suggested that the only course of action the GOP should take is delay, delay, delay. And,
right.
And that seemed to be that what their strategy was going to be. But I just couldn't understand what person would announce that.
Yeah, usually you're always blaming the other side for delaying, and they're denying it. So this is a rare time in which one side is actually owning that there's an official strategy to delay, and that is controversial. And if the past is any indication, that voters will not look kindly on that. But despite their best efforts to make this a culture war election, it's still going to be a lot about economic anxiety and their. The
and security.
Not been in the White, yes, and the party that's not been in the White House the last 8 years can have an advantage.
Mm-hmm. Now, before we run out of time, I want to ask you about how you say you vote. I read that it's your habit to write in the best presidential candidate that is not on the ballot. So, along those lines, who's on your short list for consideration this year?
Well, see, I'll have to see, where we are later in the year. But I was just talking about Kasich, assuming he's not fulfilling some vice presidential role or nominee or something like that. He'd be the kind of guy. Or maybe,
there's no question he has an amazing track record. Talk about economy and terrorism. This is a guy with an incredible track record in both those areas.
He does, but that does not, to go back to what we were talking about at the beginning, he doesn't, he's not just declaring simple, easy solutions, and people aren't able to grasp onto what he's offering. So, and who knows, maybe if Mitt Romney doesn't run, then I could vote for him this time.
So the two candidates that might be on your short list this year would be Kasich and Romney, maybe.
A couple of them, yeah. I've already done Bloomberg, so I don't feel like I can write him in again.
You can't. So you have a rule: you can't write in twice.
I don't know, but if you feel otherwise, I'm open to change that. I'm very flexible on this. See, I live in the District of Columbia, so the Democrat gets 90% of the vote anyway, so it hardly matters who I vote for.
Yeah, not long ago, Ralph Nader was on the program, and I asked him if it was unpatriotic if you really, really don't support either candidate. Is it unpatriotic not to vote? And, of course, Nader, who has higher standards than any other human being on the planet, said, yes, you have to vote your conscience. And, after which I went and I did a lot of research on voting your conscience. And he said, you have to write in your candidate, and I did all this research and only found 2 cases where a write-in candidate ever won in U.S. history. And it was interesting. They were really odd cases. One case, someone had died in the middle of their term as a representative or something like that. I don't remember the specifics now. And a lot of states don't have the write-in option anymore. They got rid of it.
Well, that's a shame. We do have that in D.C. and often, in other elections, I'll write in friends and family or my pet. But I think it's very important for somebody to at least get out there and vote. That's your obligation. And I agree with Ralph Nader on this. I did not agree with him in 2000, and we've fought about this ever since because I think he denied Al Gore the election.
Well, there's no question about that he did, but he certainly is a great American patriot, regardless.
Indeed.
Lastly, do you have a web page or a social media site where listeners can go to get more information about your columns, books, and your activities?
It's Facebook / Dana Milbank, and my Twitter handle is @Milbank.
At Milbank. Oh, well, I'm afraid that's all the time that we have today. But before we say goodbye, I want to thank you for your always insightful political coverage and also for making the time to be with us today. Thank you, Mr. Milbank.
Very happy to do so. Thank you.
If your station is leaving us after this hour and you have a question or a comment to make about our interview with Dana Milbank today, you can email me at RebeccaCosta.com or drop me a note on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. More and more, the 2016 election looks like it's going to be a contest between Trump and Clinton, and this will be a real test as to whether having the support of powerful party insiders has the clout it once had. On the one hand, Clinton is the party favorite with many more superdelegates than Sanders, and also raising much more money for the Democratic Party by a factor of 26,000 to 1. And on the other hand, Trump has no support from the GOP establishment, and he seems to be doing just fine. What do you think? Send your comments to our contact page at RebeccaCosta.com. And if you happen to miss the full interview with Dana Milbank, remember you can download previous episodes of the Costa Report from our website, from Apple iTunes, Podbean, and our YouTube channel. And if you haven't been to our website yet, we'll do that right now because it is chocked full of videos and book reviews and blogs and breaking news, and all you have to do to enjoy all of it at no cost is just go to RebeccaCosta.com. Be sure to check out our new blogs on our interviews with Ralph Nader, Ann Coulter, and Steve Kornacki, and pass those links on to your friends. And while you're at the website, don't miss the opportunity to visit our bookstore where we have carefully curated books which are guaranteed to inform and provoke critical thinking. And the best part of all is when you click on any book on the bookstore page, it will take you straight over to Amazon.com. And when you go through our book page to get to Amazon, you help support intelligent programming like you heard today. Amazon pays the Costa Report a small percentage of everything and anything you purchase on Amazon when you get to Amazon through our book page. No matter what you order, they pay a royalty to the Costa Report, and it won't cost you 1 red cent. So please, before you order socks, a printer cartridge, a gift, or a book from Amazon, make a new habit to go to RebeccaCosta.com and click on any book on the bookstore page. It's a simple, free way to support the folks who bring you quality guests like Dana Milbank. My guest next week is former Senator of Arkansas, Mark Pryor. He'll be here to talk about why Arkansas has become an important state to watch in the 2016 national election. Don't miss Senator Mark Pryor next week, right here on the only news program that puts policy ahead of politics. Now stay tuned for a second hour of Straight Talk Radio. You're listening to the Costa Report.
Every day our world gets more complicated. Not only is new information coming at us faster than we can manage, new regulations, technology, and the effects of globalization have made it much more difficult to succeed. That's why I wrote The Watchman's Rattle, a book that, for the first time, explains how complexity makes it hard to separate facts from fiction, and eventually causes us to make important decisions based on unproven beliefs. And not just us, our leaders also fall prey to this phenomena. But here's the good news. Once you know the symptoms to watch for, you can safeguard against them. So please, go to RebeccaCosta.com, that's RebeccaCosta.com, and order your copy of The Watchman's Rattle. It only takes a few minutes and the shipping is free. That's RebeccaCosta.com. Do it now. You'll be glad you did.
This is Larry from Bullseye Archery, a new shop in Scotts Valley. We carry compound bows, traditional bows, rests, anything you need for archery, and then some. If you're new to the sport, we offer lessons and carry all the products you will need for archery. We're located in Scotts Valley, 5299 Scotts Valley Drive. We are open Tuesday through Friday, 1 to 7, Saturday, 11 to 6. Bullseye Archery, the little shop with everything you could want in archery. Try us out.
Join me, Ruth Copland, on Saturday evening, 8 till 9 for It's a Question of Balance, the show where we balance the intellectual with the creative, featuring thought-provoking conversations. Out and about with people on the street on different topics, and in the studio with inspiring local, national and international guests from the arts. Discussion and creativity, two of the most vital ways we engage with the world. I look forward to you joining me, Ruth Copland, 8 to 9 Saturday evening on KSCO.
Serving Northern California for over 65 years. This is KSCO Santa Cruz. This hour of the Costa Report is brought to you by IBM. Big data at the speed of business.